Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to This Week in Bitcoin. Strong hand, as the church says. Today is September the 7th, 2018. Strong hand, long-term thinking, deferral of gratification, all that great stuff. It's been a wild, wacky week. I hope you didn't have a weak hand and get freaked out by fake Bitcoin news. We're going to talk about everything. We got some great guests. We got BTC Benny of BTC Sessions. We got Chris Black is back in the house of chriscrypto.net. We'll talk about that because that dude is in motion. And then we got Maximo down in Venezuela. So Venezuela, it's been in the news, in the Bitcoin news, in the crypto news. There was an article about some mining situations down there. I linked to that below. All these guys' pertinent links are linked to below, by the way. We're going to start off talking about Venezuela with Maximo, who I hope is still there. Maximo, did you drop out?
Yeah, I'm here.
Right.
I'm here.
Good. All right, so tell us what's going on in Venezuela.
First, thank you for having me. I love being on your show. Actually, some good news is that the volume in local bitcoins have been increasing since the past few months. Which, if you check my Twitter, you can see like 4 months ago, I tweeted that big companies were using local bitcoins as a way to avoid hyperinflation and as a way to acquire dollars. And yeah, most of them they're still selling their bitcoins to get dollars in the US, but there are few of them that they're starting keeping the bitcoins, and it's amazing the amount of people that have been reaching out to us and contacting other people because they want to use local BTC as the way to avoid capital controls and hyperinflation. That's something about that's some good news. And about the mining article, yeah, I encourage everyone that you should go and read about that. You should go and read that article because it's completely true. Everything that the guy says is true, and I have friends and people that I know that have experienced those situations, and it's getting worse and worse every day. Really, the authorities. For you guys to understand that for the government to stay in power, they have to give the power to the police and military organizations. Because when there is a protest, those organizations are the one who defend the government. So basically, they can act at will, and no one is going to say anything to them. So the mining industry here in Venezuela is some kind of big because we basically have no electricity cost, or any. Really, you just need a space with electricity and internet, and you can mine for free. And these organizations are taking advantage of that, tracking miners and knocking the door down, taking the mining equipment. And if you got bitcoins or cell phones with you, they force you to hand your private keys or to send them the bitcoin that you have with you at that moment. And if they know that you have bitcoins, well, they probably track you down and force you to also to give the bitcoin to them. And there's nothing you can do, man.
Let me ask you. You mentioned, first of all, the title of the article, which is linked to below, is called "Extortion, Police Raids, and Secrecy Inside the Venezuelan Bitcoin World, Mining World." You mentioned something about a cell phone. So you're saying if an official can stop somebody with a cell phone, and if they discover there's Bitcoin on the cell phone, they force them to give them the Bitcoin somehow.
Yeah.
So again,
I encourage people to store the Bitcoin in cold storage, but that's, I don't know, man. people in Venezuela haven't learned about using some app or insecure way to secure your money.
Yeah,
but
we're going to actually talk worldwide. People don't understand proper storage,
well, yeah.
And this is, and I'm picking on this because I'm not saying this is the way it's going to be in a lot of countries, but don't keep a lot on a cell phone, people. Look at this. This is a real life example of people getting their Bitcoin taken away from them when they think they have it safe on their cell phone. I doubt people are getting government officials, people carrying around treasures, and then government officials are taking it off. They probably don't even know what that is. I mean, you're one step ahead of the game if you don't have it on a cell phone. That's where, okay, sorry to interrupt and bring up that whole thing. I just don't like all these people keeping tons of Bitcoin on cell phones, and you've just given like a scary situation what happens. But continue.
And I work all clients, I tell them that not to do so. And if they are going to do so, I encourage them to use Samurai Wallet, which have an option where you can hide the application. So no, the people who search in your phone, they won't see that the app.
You know what?
But if you have Coinbase or blockchain.info, which are crappy wallets, I don't know why people use them, but well.
You said the one that you would say for people that got to play around with cell phones is Samurai Wallet. You said.
Yeah, the only one I recommend.
Yeah, because if they see that Coinbase on there, it's going to be pretty obvious what the heck that is. Well, okay. Continue. Sorry.
No, if they see the Samurai Wallet app, they are also going to know that is a Bitcoin wallet, but you have an option to hide the icon, so that make it kind of more secure in that way. The best way to secure it is to store in your node or to buy a hardware wallet. But most of the people won't do that. But I lost my train of thought. What were we talking about?
I forgot. Well, you're talking about the overall situation. I guess what I want to know. I heard you said a lot of the people are holding on to it now, but are people? I heard like a lot of people just run into Colombia to sell them immediately. Have you heard about that?
Well, people who live across the border, yeah. But for example, people who live in the other side of the country, they don't do that. It's really easy to actually local Bitcoin here is really easy to use. I would say like 99% of the people use local Bitcoins as a way to exchange Bolivar for BTC or BTC for Bolivars. And I don't see the need to go to Colombia and sell them because you get like the same rate. So
I heard there were too many at some point too. There was too many Bitcoin in Colombia that you could get a good deal on Bitcoin there. I guess if you had dollars or something like that. I don't know.
Oh man, maybe I don't know if you can buy cash, but yeah, sometimes you can find good deals. Actually, sometimes you can find here in Venezuela like a difference in the spread, so you can make like a 10% if you exchange Bolivars for Bitcoin instead of exchanging dollar for Bitcoins. So that's kind of some kind of a business model if you can take advantage of that opportunity in the market, which comes like once every 3 months, and you can make 10% of your Bitcoin, which is good.
Has the Petro been born yet? Have you seen any progress with the Petro?
No. Actually, it's no. They haven't created, or maybe they created it, but people don't know if they created it in the NEM blockchain or in the Ethereum blockchain. It's a complete chaos. What they did to the Petro is with the new currency that they created, the new Bolivar, they took 50 out of the currency to handle the hyperinflation, and they tried to tie the Bolivar to the value of one Petro, which is supposed to be tied to the value of one barrel of oil. But that's actually, you cannot buy Petros, you cannot sell Petros, you cannot made on Petros. It basically doesn't exist, just on paper.
It's a lot of talk. All right, my two other guests. Before I've got more questions for Maximo, but what do you guys have to say about? Do you have questions for him? Anything to say?
I was going to second the Samurai wallet there. That is a fantastic wallet, especially when he was talking about being able to hide the app. If anybody's unfamiliar with it, essentially there's a privacy setting if you go in, and it will allow you to actually make the application entirely disappear. And the way that you access it is you have a special code that you set up, and you actually go to your phone dialer, you dial in the special code with like a star and a pound at the end, and then the app will open once you hit dial. It's insane. Like it's such a cool app. Not only that, but it allows you to do things like turn on Tor. It allows you to do ricochet transactions, which sends them to 4 different addresses before reaching its final destination. So I found Samurai to be one of the best, if not the best. Actually, it is the best Bitcoin wallet. Yeah. So yeah, I absolutely echo that Samurai wallet endorsement.
All right, that's we're going to talk about some storage, because there's so many people who are just freaked out by storage they don't even get into Bitcoin. But we'll talk about that a little later. Chris, anything you want to add before we move to?
Yeah, that's amazing. I just learned about. I knew about Samurai Wallet, but I didn't know about that feature. So I'm really glad you guys brought it up. And just as we're hearing from Maximo about what's going on in Venezuela and those kind of problems, where you could be walking down the street and your cell phone could be taken and looked at. That's coming soon to most Western countries, I think. I think we're probably going to get to a point where, going through immigration, going through customs, they're going to be looking for ways to try to figure out if you're carrying $100,000, $10,000, $50 million across a border. So these type of solutions are going to become more and more important, I think, over the next 5 to 10 years. And I hope there's other companies out there that are thinking about it and working on it. Aside from just a brain wallet, we need other ways to safely transport the crypto.
Yeah, very good point about border crossings. I don't think on the regular streets of the United States you're going to get questioned, but as a person who travels a lot and goes through all sorts of customs, one day they're gonna ask you, have any Bitcoin on you, and who knows what you're gonna have to deal with at that point.
The answer is always no.
Yeah.
It's in the cloud.
Oh God. Well, that is the truth. I mean, you have access to your bank account with your credit card, so you have access to that much money you're carrying over the board. So it's the same type of thing. You don't really have the Bitcoin with you. It's on the blockchain. All right, Maximo. Last time you were on, we talked about Dash. Are they still marketing heavy in Venezuela?
Yeah. And I don't see that stopping anytime soon. Actually, after we did the show, man, the amount of Dash troll that came after me on Twitter was insane. I was having a really good time, man.
Unbelievable. You see, the reason I'm even bringing this up now is because we didn't even. I don't know how much we talked about it on that last show. But afterwards, and that was July 4th. Everybody check out the archives to see that. It was all about Venezuela. But yeah, on Twitter, man, there were all of a sudden huge threads with you and Jaime and all these people talking about it, getting questioned about Dash. They're very defensive, to say the least.
Actually, I want to add something that Chris said. He said that he thinks that what has happened in Venezuela is coming to all Western countries. Actually, I was having a debate the other day with the banker here in Venezuela, and he told me that, okay, maybe people here in countries like Venezuela needs Bitcoin, but that's it. That there is no other use case. And I said, I replied to them like, dude, most of the countries in the world are having these kind of problems. Okay, like 70% of the countries in the world are having economic and political problems. And what happened to Venezuela can happen to anyone. If you go back 15 years or maybe 20 years in time, you will see that Venezuela had one of the strongest economy in South America. And that Venezuela had one of the best education systems in South America. And even with that, and also all the natural resources that we had, and even with those, even with that, we'd end up getting to hyperinflation, and that this can happen to any country. Actually, yeah, people see like, oh no, it's not happening in Europe, or it cannot happen in America, or it cannot happen in Canada. But you don't know that, man. It just takes a bunch of people, like a group of people, who can get into your citizens' mind and screw up your whole economy. And that's why we need Bitcoin. That's to prevent that from happening. Because do that, and you have another option. Well, okay, let them do it. Screw the dollar or screw the bolivar. But after you can have an exit way, and do not care about it. Actually, I do not care what happens to the bolivar anymore. I don't care really. It can devaluate like 100,000 times, and it doesn't affect me.
And that's the situation. Whether you truly 100% believe it might happen here, even if you sort of believe it might happen here, that you should get yourself into in a situation where Bitcoin is your insurance mechanism, just in case it does happen here. Maximo here is saying he's already opted out of the Venezuela Boulevard. He doesn't care. What the heck? At this point, what's it matter? Everyone can get into that situation, no matter if you're in South Africa, if you're in Turkey, and especially a country like South Africa where it hasn't happened yet, but where there are weird things going on where that might make you be suspicious, like, well, they might print this thing to oblivion one day if they can't take the farms, and maybe they'll do this instead. It is an insurance mechanism. It opts you out of any situation you might think might get hyperinflationary. What we all know, every fiat is inflated at some point, but someone's about to say something. Sorry.
I was just going to say, as far as it comes to this kind of situation in the US, even if it wasn't necessarily a situation where it's because the currency is so inflated that there's crackdowns, you still have stuff like civil asset forfeiture, which is where basically, say you were traveling with a large amount of cash, you got pulled over on the side of the road. An officer can implicate your property in a crime and charge the property with crime without ever having to charge you a crime. And then at that point, rights don't apply because it's property. So you then have to actively prove that your property was not being used in a crime. And I think it's only a matter of time before eventually you see a case of that happening with cryptocurrency, because this is natural leap to say, well, it must be used for drugs or whatever. I think it's eventually we're going to see a headline like this where there's civil asset forfeiture of somebody's cryptocurrency, and it's just because their I guess their property has been implicated in a crime, and if that person hasn't stored it well and safely and discreetly, it may be taken from them.
Again, we're getting into the how to properly store this stuff. It's so important.
And even, one thing, even if it has been stored securely and safely and properly, if people know about it, it still could make your life miserable. Because if you've got that cryptocurrency hanging out there, yeah, they can't get the crypto, but instead they could get your car or they could get your house. So it just goes to show how important it is to keep your holdings to yourself. Take advantage of even if crypto is not completely anonymous in all cases due to KYC, AML, you have to give up your identity in some situations. You can still do your best to, take full advantage of what it has to offer as far as privacy.
Also, in the end of the day, though, too, if you got into some horrific situation like that, you can always get a house in another country or a car in another country. If it got that bad in your country, at least you'd be able to take the bulk of your wealth with you to the new country. With it's an escape mechanism. It helps you escape
if you can get out.
Again, you can. In the end of the day, it's easier to get out we're getting the very specifics as like a single guy, no wife, no kids. You could just drop your house and all that stuff. Here's a lesson, people. Don't get too much stuff, and understand what personal responsibility is. Every little thing you get into, every little legal entanglement is going to tie you down a little bit more. So try to minimize all that type of stuff. So in case, and people are watching this in all sorts of countries all over the world right now. So I'm talking to you, especially people, just, maybe one day you're going to have to run, and crypto does allow you that escape route there.
I just follow up on one other thing that Maximo said? Please. That was really interesting.
Yeah.
Maximo, and I assume you grew up in Venezuela. I could be wrong. But when you said you don't care about what happens to the currency there because you're really you've moved your assets into crypto, into Bitcoin. It really struck me that, with the internet growing as it has for the past 20 years, countries are becoming less and less about preserving a culture and about local community, and more about simply financial currencies, and national borders are really becoming more economic than anything else, because we're all communicating like this live stream right now. We're in different countries, different cities across the world. As time goes on, national borders are getting eroded by the internet, and the death knell could be these borderless cryptocurrencies as more and more of the national currencies fall, like we're seeing with Venezuela and Zimbabwe and other countries. What else is holding countries together at this point other than their currency? So it just struck me when he said that he didn't care about his country's currency. That's going to continue to spread like a virus too.
I completely agree.
All right, let's Maximo, I've interrupted you a couple times here. I'm sorry about that. Is there anything you wanted to say that you now remember that you wanted to say?
Let's see something.
Well,
okay. Yeah. No, tell me.
No. What are you going to say?
I know that actually. I agree with what Chris just said, and I think that in the future, actually, for example, in Venezuela, like you said, sometimes people just identify with the country because of the currency, because the government forces you to use that, but cultures are open, being more open, and you because of the internet, now you can see what happens in other sides of the world, and you can understand different cultures. And Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies can help the world become more global and not just local, like it used to be.
Well, let me ask you a question about Venezuela specifically. How is this all going to end? I mean, it seems every time we talk, there's more drama. There's more talk of the petro that does not exist, but then there's more hyperinflation of the boulevard, which does exist. I mean, what's the end game here? How do you foresee this in the next year? What's happening here? Are people just going to leave the country, or what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, look, I still have some kind of hope, okay? And like I always said, Bitcoin is helping, but Bitcoin itself is not going to solve our problems, our social problems, okay? It can help you solve your individual economic problems, but if your government wants to still messing up with the country, well, sorry, man, but Bitcoin cannot fix that, unfortunately. So I see. I don't know, man, really, because at this point, these guys have complete control of everything in this country. You cannot. For example, we talked about the nonprofit last time, right? Yeah. The reason that is not live yet is because we got some calls telling us that we could not politicize that nonprofit. And if we start talking about politics and now about why we started that, which is because hyperinflation and people starving and kids not having any education, well, there will be consequences. And there are places in here that are struggling, and you cannot bring help to them because the government do not want the people to know what is happening. That's how difficult it is in here to help each other, and it's getting worse and worse every day. And I think that for now, I don't judge anyone who leave the country trying to find a better future. Because seriously, man, our future in here is not that bright. It's really complicated, and we still try to work because we love this country. I was born and raised in here, and all my friends and family, well, mostly family, all my friends are outside of Venezuela, and we're trying to work to improve this place. But every day is getting harder and harder, and I don't know how it's going to end. I don't want Venezuela to be the next Cuba or Syria, but that's a possibility, a huge one.
Wow. Wow. Well, I thank you so much for giving us real on the ground information. You did say that article was interesting. It is linked to below. And we'll get at the end of the show. I'm sure during the rest of the show, you're going to think of things you want to say. You'll have some great conclusionary remarks, no doubt about it. Before we move on, do you two have any more to say about that, about Venezuela, or anything to ask Maximo?
Scary stuff, and I think Maximo's right, and he's being really realistic as far as potential outcomes. Because at the end of the day, a power vacuum gets filled by somebody. So it's usually by the most charismatic, the most the person who can go out there and promise the most to the people, right? And that's how you get Cuba. So that's realistic. The question is, have we not learned enough from history to be able to prevent that? I don't know the answer. But it's scary stuff.
Well, unfortunately, I mean, in that part of the world, Argentina keeps on repeating the same mistakes. So I wouldn't be. The question is, have we learned? Well, maybe you've learned and I've learned, but I don't know if the people of Venezuela, I don't know if they've learned. I don't know. I don't know enough about that. I just know in Argentina, they seem to always, every 10 to 15 years, they revert back to socialism and hyperinflation or economic problems again and again and again. It seems, and they like big talkers who are going to promise it. Everybody wants free stuff. I think most people,
we don't learn, man. Most of the people don't learn.
Yeah, I think most people will always want free stuff and charismatic people talking about solving all their personal responsibility is a new counterculture. It always will be. People want big leaders to tell them everything's going to be all right and take responsibility for them, unfortunately. And that's the cool thing about Bitcoin is that it's all about personal responsibility and control. And we're going to talk about that in a second. Benny, anything you wanted to add to all this?
I think, unfortunately, we're just going to see stuff like this again and again. Part of that is a symptom of the fact that you always have new generations coming up that haven't experienced it firsthand. So there's a little bit of a knowledge gap there. And that could also be symptomatic of lack of education or poor education when it comes to the area of economics, and people not understanding implications of what's being sold to them and what they're voting for. It's just, it's unfortunate until you educate people on what others have experienced and somebody can really, really understand that and don't sugarcoat it, then it's going to keep happening again and again. And that's why you see this instance of history not exactly repeating itself, but it rhyming quite a bit.
Yeah. I think lack of economic understanding is something that's incredibly common. And even the people who get into crypto, and we're going to talk about this, some of them have a kind of a confusing understanding of how things are supposed to work. Okay, so moving on real quick, Benny, there was a question for you. Is Samurai Wallet available for iPhone?
It is not yet, but I've been following their Twitter quite a bit, and they always post updates, and they are it looks like they're actively testing their iOS version. They were showing some screenshots and everything of it just now. But for right now, it's only available on Android. And there's also a paired app called Sentinel, which is one where you can track your Ledger and Trezor and other hardware wallet balances in Bitcoin on that app. And it has the same hiding function so that people can't find it. So it's another great app that people might want to check out.
All right. Now that BTC Benny on BTC Sessions, he's got all sorts of videos covering all sorts of cool stuff. Check out his Twitter. It's linked to below. Pound that like button, baby, if you're enjoying this. You only get these type of guests, these type of topics on this show here every Friday. And of course, there's a new show every day. Check out the links below for your Trezor t-shirts, all that good stuff that I always, pound the like button. All right. So I want to bring up we're talking about confusion and economic confusion. And I have experienced a lot of crypto conflation lately where people think, oh, Bitcoin's just the same as IOTA, the same thing. I can just either or. I get So what's this deal with centralization and decentralization? They didn't get into crypto because of that. They got in to trade it or whatever. But here is a tweet from Chris Black. there's nothing wrong with believing in or investing in a centralized blockchain technology as long as you realize and acknowledge that the blockchain can be turned off or destroyed at any given moment, and full trust, that's a key word, full trust in the dev team is required. All right, Chris, take it away. Explain to everyone, what that was all about there.
That was specifically relating to something I saw about, I think it's called WagerX, which is I think it's a gambling blockchain platform. I'm not sure. I'm not totally sure. I just saw that they have a blockchain. They sell a token. It's listed on CoinMarketCap, but they announced that their blockchain was going into maintenance mode, and that there could be no mining and no buying or selling on the blockchain while it's in maintenance mode. And I saw that there was some confusion about that, which tells me that people are out there buying tokens and buying cryptocurrencies without really fully understanding what they are, like you said. My tweet was just saying, look, if you want to buy that, if you believe in what they're doing and you trust them, you can buy it. It's really the same as dealing with any company out there. You're paying for a service from them. You're trusting that they're going to give it back to you. You need to feel good about that. But if you're out there buying WagerX and you're thinking it's as safe as Bitcoin or other massively decentralized cryptocurrencies, you don't understand, and you have a really solid chance of losing your money. And there's plenty of situations where that's happened, as we all know. So that's why I wanted to throw it out there. There's plenty of people who support Bitcoin and even support Ethereum and other arguably decentralized cryptos that say, don't touch these centralized blockchains. Don't touch them. They're totally useless. You're going to lose your money. I disagree. My take is, if you know what you're getting yourself into and you believe in what they're doing, there's going to be plenty of solutions that take advantage of crypto technology and an open blockchain that are centralized to a certain extent. And just like dealing with any company, like I said, you have to trust them the same way you trust that Google is going to deliver the service that you paid $20 for at the start of the month, or that Netflix is going to let you watch movies for the full month that you paid for. So that's what's going to happen.
It's a big if, though, if you know the difference. There's so few people that know Bitcoin's predictability. These other ones don't have that predictability. They might change the amount of coins they issue, and I mean, all sorts of things. They might break that. They might stop running. I mean, the centralization versus decentralization. Again, I think it boils down to that. So many people do not know. They just think Ripple's cheap. I want to buy Ripple. They do not grasp the centralization, how it can just be turned off. How it can just.
Wait, you mean XRP?
yeah. Well, and this is the thing. And Benny, you've been tweeting about how there's the less you know about Bitcoin, the more confusion you're adding to the space, and it's amazing. There's so many people who do not know. I tell people, just send your first Bitcoin before you even buy into another project, just so you have that basic concept. So, I mean, yeah, Benny, you're an education man here. What's going on here? Whoa.
With last thing, everything got so crazy last year that people dove into this whole space without having that fundamental knowledge even required to understand Bitcoin. People that had been around the space for a few years as of last year, they at least took the time to understand Bitcoin itself on some level. And then that gave them a decent litmus test against other projects to understand, well, this is the trade-off here, and this is the trade-off here, and what am I giving up by allowing more transactions per second on the base layer? What am I giving up by allowing for these functions? If you're Turing complete, what does that mean? Does it open up more attack vectors? So when people are looking at different coins, they came into the space and they were just bombarded with all of these projects that were saying, we can do this, that, this, and that, without saying in exchange for trading off this, that, this, and that. And And so people don't realize, well, am I trading decentralization for this function? People don't realize why Bitcoin was a success in the first place. What was the driving factor? I'll give you a hint. It wasn't transactions per second. It was that you had money that was separated from state. It was that you had censorship resistance. And so some of those driving factors just weren't a factor in people buying into these other coins. They just saw the buzzwords, and they didn't realize that when you say the word blockchain, it doesn't necessarily mean decentralized and censorship resistant. You have to worry about what's your consensus mechanism. Is it proof of work? How much work is going into that? Can you buy 51% of the network for a few $100? Because we've seen that happen. We've seen 51% attacks on Bitcoin Gold, and it's now being delisted on exchanges because it's so easy to buy up hash rate and control the entire network. People didn't take into account all these things. And so I try to stress to people, wrap your head around Bitcoin. I'm not saying that you have to become a Bitcoin maximalist, but I am saying at least wrap your head around what it is, why it works as it does right now, why people were attracted to it in the first place. And then that gives you that litmus test to contrast, to compare, and then decide for yourself. But if you don't have that solid foundation, then you're just going to be more and more confused, and you're more likely to fall prey to scammers and people that may not be 100% truthful in what they're presenting to you.
I mean, Chris brought it up. I mean, you got to trust the dev teams on some of these projects, and Bitcoin is not about trust. It's it's a trustless network. Maximo, what do you have to say about all of this?
Well, I can tell you a story. Most of I spent 8 months before I buy my first Bitcoin, learning and investigating on the internet about Bitcoin. Then when I not fully understand it, but when I have a solid basic concept, I went and buy my first Bitcoin. Most of the people won't do that. Actually, that's why there's 80% of the people and 20% of the people. And I always repeat to my friends or clients or any person that come, oh, look at this project, it's amazing, or ICOs or all that kind of garbage. Like, dude, in a bullish market, everyone makes money. Everything goes up. Everything is the next big thing. But you will learn when the bear market comes and you lose everything. You will learn that not all projects are valuable, that most of these projects are scam or won't deliver any useful to the world. And actually, I have seen some of my friends that bought, like, I don't know, Ripple or Dash or all that kind of stuff, Dragon Chain, and all these ICOs. And now that when I talk to them, like, dude, you saw what happened? No, yeah, I know. I need to I need to do a little bit more research, and I need to understand that Bitcoin is the king. And I understand the people who, okay, you can make more money like trading altcoins sometimes if you know what you are doing, or maybe if you're lucky enough to make money. But I don't recommend that. Yeah, and you see people, especially here in Venezuela, like take like one course of 3 hours and they started trading cryptocurrencies. That's funny, and I don't know, man. I think that they will learn, and I think that this bear market is teaching a lot of people that blockchain is a buzzword, and a lot of scammers and people trying to take out your money and selling you garbage and trying to lead you to the wrong way. You need to do your own research, and you need to realize why Bitcoin have value.
Yeah, well, people are just they're very short-term thinkers. They want it quick. They want answers real quick. They don't want to sit down and take the time to actually learn. They're very impulsive. Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin, by the way, people. You know, I like to say that, but all these altcoins like to say there that, and everyone gets fooled by that, oh, this one's going to be the next Bitcoin. I mean, I can't tell you, like I tweet out, informative stuff during the day, retweet stuff. Almost every other day, I would say someone will say, well, yeah, Bitcoin is the one, but my altcoin, and then they'll name some like 5th tier altcoin. It's just as good. It's amazing.
Actually, every time we finish a show, there comes like a lot of. I think that these are bots account. I don't know. But there comes a lot of people like telling me, "Hey man, why Digibyte? We have 0 instant confirmation. Dude, we don't need an instant cash in here. We have the Bolivar for that. Okay, we need something else. We don't want to spend real money. We want to spend garbage money."
I wanted to just tack on to that. There was an interesting tweet. I think it was from, when was this? This was maybe yesterday or 2 days ago. But a guy by the name of Kevin Rook, Rooke, he tweeted this thing that says, "Forget about dApps with no users. Let's talk about tokens with no users." He basically showed a metric that said only 27 cryptocurrencies have over 400 active addresses today. 400. So, and there's this big chart of how many active addresses there currently are. And you're looking at stuff like, OMG and Cardano. Like Cardano has like 2,300 active addresses. OMG has 800 active addresses. And Doge has more than double the amount of active Dash addresses. I'm going to get some hate on Twitter for that.
Oh, you're going to. Because there's one guy in the chat right now I saw that was talking about Dash, so he'll be on you soon. Wait, by the way, did you read this tweet you're talking about from Rook?
Yeah.
Did you retweet this out there? Is it out there?
I did, yeah. So Kevin Rook, his Twitter handle is at KEROOKE. But yeah, it has a whole chart. It shows how many active 24-hour active addresses there are, and it's eye-opening, we'll say.
Just one thing, I did see that tweet too, and it was a little misleading because he was just using that one. I'm not sure what website it was, but they only list less than 10% of all cryptocurrencies, and they leave out some of the big ones in the top 50. So there's a lot of stuff that's not there. That's a little, so if something is missing from the list, it doesn't mean they don't have over 400 or whatever it is users per day, but they're just not for some reason tracked on that website.
Do you know which ones?
There were, I don't know off the top of my head. I know there were some big ones. The one I was looking for was Nano because I'm a fan of the project, but they weren't there. And I was curious about that metric, but they're not tracked on that website for whatever reason. All right,
I'm gonna look into this myself and bring it up on another show. I'm gonna look at this tweet. Everyone, it's KEROOKE is Kevin Rook, and so you can look at it. But I'll link to it in another show or this show. I'm gonna get on this. This is very interesting to me. Yes.
Add one more thing on the topic,
please.
Every industry that involves technology. Industry or area or just whenever technology is involved, technology never stops, right? Technology, innovation never stops, especially when there's money involved. There's no reason to think that innovation around cryptocurrency is going to stop. And like the problem Maximo was talking about before with you can't walk down the street with Bitcoin on your phone or it can get taken from you, that problem is going to get solved. The question is, how is it going to get solved? Is it going to get solved within the Bitcoin development sphere? Or is it going to get solved within the greater cryptocurrency development sphere? Innovation is never going to stop. And there's never going to be just a world where there's only Bitcoin because you can always create another coin. You can always create. So as long as you can create another coin, there's always going to be more coins. So, the one thing I just want to raise is a lot of people just want to strive for this like kind of only Bitcoin world. That's never going to happen. So it's better to realize that and embrace the innovation that's going on. Not all altcoin projects are scams. Okay. Yeah. A lot of them, and not even all of them are trying to create a currency per se. A lot of them are just trying to do interesting, innovative stuff. And I think it's important to support that, even in the face of people, trolls like Saifedean and Pierre, shouting you down and saying, no, it's only Bitcoin forever and ever and ever. So that's my
Oh wow, you're calling Saifedean a troll, man. This is
man.
this is tough words here. This is we got interesting. I want to there's so many people that say every altcoin is going to go to zero. I think and Chris, you said this. That's not realistic. That's not real. There are some legitimate ones out there. We're talking about all these 80%ers doing crazy things. They're always going to be 80%ers wanting the next Bitcoin, wanting the next Ethereum, there's going to be room for altcoins. I think Bitcoin is going to be tremendously dominant, obviously, and that there's only one Bitcoin. It's special. It's different. And I think you can have that approach. But then you get to the real extreme where it's like everything else is a dangerous threat. I mean, J.W. Weatherman is like that. He thinks everything's a tremendous threat to Bitcoin, and that you can only talk about Bitcoin. I'm of the opinion that there'll be some altcoins that survive. There are going to be some top tier ones. How useful will they be? I don't know. And I don't care that much. I think and there are going to be innovations in some altcoins. But I mean, I'm a realist here. I mean, Ethereum there's so many big players in Ethereum. Well, I mean, Chris, what do you think's happening with Ethereum here? What do you think's I mean, so many people are down on it. It's not going. It will. It's apples and oranges to Bitcoin. It's not even supposed to be a competitor of Bitcoin.
They're down on it because the price is going down. They'll be up on it when the price is going up, right? So the price is a separate issue. I can tell you, the consulting that I do. So I work with like entrepreneurs that don't really know much about crypto, but know that they want to get involved with it. So I try to guide them down paths where they can create either like a decentralized app or something that's going to serve their business in a way that makes sense, not some scammy baloney, right? And all of that innovation is happening on Ethereum. And there's a lot of amazing things that you can do with Ethereum as relates to business, with dApps, with smart contracts, that we've barely scratched the surface. And to do any of that, you have to have gas. You have to have Ethereum. So the stuff that we're even trying out with different businesses, we're out there having to buy Ethereum to fund their accounts just to have the gas in order to run the smart contract. So my take on it is, based on what I'm doing for many, many hours every week right now, that space is going to grow. And I don't believe that the dApp space is dead. I don't believe Ethereum is dead. I understand that people have concerns about Ethereum as a currency and as a store of value because there is some centralized decision making that happens there, right? But that really doesn't have much to do with the usefulness of it, And as far as that goes, I think that's going to continue to grow and blast off. And I think that the cost of one ETH is going to continue to go up with it. That's my opinion, just based on my own personal experience.
Can I add something?
Yeah, sure. Max.
Oh, okay. I kind of understand your point, Chris. My problem here is that most of the project, why people call altcoins scam, is because most of the altcoin leaders or the marketing people try to market altcoins as a new Bitcoin, or like Bitcoin failed to deliver this, and we're creating this one. And most of them, like 99% of them, throw garbage technology to you, thinking that the people who's stupid, and most of them are to buy it. For example, the Dash people just partnered up with a phone manufacturer for crypto mobile, and if you go to the Twitter, they said like, if money's changing, so your cell phone should too. So your cell phone should too. And the only difference between that crypto mobile and a phone is that it has pre-installed Uphold app and the Dash app. And they're telling that they're changing the mobile industry. So most of the projects goes that way. They market. They spend a lot of money marketing instead of the technology, and try to scam people by selling you something that is not real. That is not working. Actually, it's not useful technology. I agree with you that not every project is a scam, but it's hard to find something useful in other altcoins. Of course there are, and I agree with you that yeah, we should let the people work because we cannot stop innovation. Something useful is going to come from some other blockchain that is going to be created. Maybe it's not today, but in the future, I think there will be. But I understand. I understand both points, your point and Saifedean's and tone-based point. That because most of the coins are their leaders are scammers, and maybe I don't know. Maybe that has something to do with that.
I'd like to take a middle position on this. Okay, so my issue here is that I think that when somebody jumps in with a coin that is trying to address something that Bitcoin can't do, the assumption of people buying that coin, it's not because they're looking for that particular utility. It's because they think the value is going to go up. It's because they think that this money, because of this little tweak, is now better sound money than something like Bitcoin. But realistically, sound money, you want something that obviously people want. It has to be in demand, has to be scarce, it has to be difficult to reproduce. And right now, Bitcoin is the most difficult to reproduce. And so a good example of this is the Bitcoin Litecoin. And I know that you just called Safe a troll, but I'm going to cite something in his book that I think is actually quite useful comparison. So years back, when you had a lot of countries that went on either gold or silver standards, you would have a country that was on a gold standard, a country that's on a silver standard. And whenever you have something that is being used as money, you're going to want to mine it as much as possible and try and get as much of it as you can so that you can spend it. It's desirable. Well, the thing is, gold is more difficult to mine than silver. And so what naturally happened was people mined silver.
Oh,
The value as far as a local currency happened to be inflated a lot quicker. And that eventually forced these countries that were on a silver standard to revert back to the gold standard, or to switch to the gold standard, because their money was being devalued next to these other currencies. And so I think what we're going to see, to parallel that to something like Bitcoin and Litecoin had a massive tear last year, but a lot of people don't realize it never got even close to its all-time high in terms of Bitcoin. Litecoin in 2013 was worth 4% of a Bitcoin, just over, somewhere in that range. Well, with a massive tear at the absolute peak, Litecoin in 2017 was only worth about 2% of a Bitcoin. So it got about halfway to its previous all-time high. And people don't realize, because they saw the dollars in value going up. But had you just held Bitcoin that entire time, it was the sounder money and it was the better bet. And so I definitely, I'm not going to argue that every altcoin is a scam if the token itself has a specific utility and people are buying it because of that utility. How many people buying Ethereum right now are buying it because they need to use it for a specific app, versus I want to buy this because I think it's a sound money that's going to go up more than Bitcoin? Or, insert altcoin here. I think there's a lot of people that are buying based on they think it's the next Bitcoin in terms of value. And maybe that's just the fault of people not doing their own research. But I think it's just a matter of total lack of education in the space.
Chris.
Yeah, I think these are all really great comments and great points. And just one thing I wanted to throw out there. I think it's really important that we don't conflate Bitcoin as money with Bitcoin as a payment network, because essentially what all of these things are, if you're going to call them money, there has to be a payment network to support it. So the way I look at all of these is, what is unique about the payment network? How are they making it more efficient? They can't make it more decentralized than Bitcoin, but can they make it, are there other security features, anonymity, etc.? The payment network is really the core feature of all this. The tokens that float on top Who cares, right? It's all about the network itself and how it secures the value. So, when you look at Litecoin, which is basically a clone of Bitcoin, what's the point, right? Yeah, they changed a couple things about it, block times and stuff, I guess. But other than that, what's the point? And then it goes on and on, all the different clones that are out there, as opposed to the really innovative stuff like Ethereum, like something like Nano, which is complete alternative. And like you said before, they acknowledge they give up a little decentralization to get a little more efficiency, and it's about these trade-offs, and it's about which payment network not only is the best as far as decentralization goes, but can best fit the needs of the people that need it. So then you think about what's going on in Venezuela. Is Bitcoin really the best choice when they can walk down the street and get it taken from them? Or is there another option that might be better for that person who's walking down the street where it can't be taken from them? That's just a hypothetical. Don't troll me because I'm saying Bitcoin is not the best, but just that's how I look at these things. It's about the networks more than about the tokens as money.
I want to ask you a quick question since we were talking about Ethereum and everything. What is your take on the proof of stake versus proof of work? Are they going to really go proof of stake?
Are they really going to do it? I don't know. I don't really. So I'm a little out of my depth on some of that, but I do believe that just based, I've sat in some sessions about this as a layperson. I can give you my take on it.
Yeah.
Proof of work to me seems more secure just because of just looking at it from the outside as a non-developer. Do I trust that mechanism versus a voting system where it seems like people with higher balances have more of a say in the network? At its face value, it seems like proof of work is better, but then you see what's going on with Bitcoin, and it's getting to a point where we can't really ignore the centralization that's going on with mining, and you start to see the problems there too. So it's a double-edged sword. I don't think there's a right answer to this yet, and I'm all for the innovation and for trying proof of stake if people want to try it.
All right. I like your take on thing. All for the innovation, and I think that's definitely a good attitude out there. All these coins, do what you want to do. I say the same thing. Try to come up with a better Bitcoin. Try and do it. The challenge has been out there, but again, Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin, I got to say. Any of you other two want to, before we move on, because we got to move on real quick, but did you two have anything to add to that, to Chris?
Proof of stake, I worry about as a consensus mechanism for the exact reason that it was pointed out here. Just if basically the more money you have, the more say you have. So you get into an instance where you have a large amount of Ethereum and you start staking it, and you start actually accumulating more and more. Whereas as Bitcoin, it doesn't matter how much Bitcoin you have, it's not getting you more Bitcoin. You still have to exert the same amount of work to get more Bitcoin. So I prefer that in terms of money. As far as optimization to allow Ethereum to be more nimble, I can see how that would be useful. But I don't know. I'll just say it's not my cup of tea.
All right.
And you notice one thing: nobody from the Ethereum end, Vitalik, Joe Lubin, any of these guys that are making these decisions are out there touting Ethereum as sound money. They're all saying Ethereum is a network where you can do all of these awesome things with smart contracts and dApps and on and on and on. But Ethereum is not sound money. And Vitalik is even out on Twitter saying that.
Yeah.
He's saying, this is not money, guys. This is a platform where we can change the world. But as long as there's a token people can buy and speculate on, they're going to do it. And then they're going to turn that around and blame the platform for their loss. When it's really
one response to that. You said it's not sound money. But I would have one little jab back at that. Is that they just carried out an action or they're in the process of carrying out an action that is more or less monetary policy, because they reduced the number of ETH reward, or they're looking at reducing the reward, the block reward. Mm-hmm. And that to me is like a centralized, it's a monetary policy. It's a monetary action. If they were just saying these tokens are just it's only used in the sense of we need it to work with these dApps, then absolutely, then it doesn't matter the issuance rate because people are using it for what it's meant to be. But to me, that tightening of the issuance means that they're trying to drive the value up. That's that kind of, I don't know why else you would execute that change. So I don't know, maybe you have more insight than me into that.
I know about that. Oh, go ahead, Maximo. I'll let you go.
Yeah. Also, I read some articles and read some people on Twitter talking about putting a hard cap on Ethereum too. I agree with you that if Ethereum is not meant to be money, that's okay, man. Great, but I think they need to go to proof of stake because they have so much scaling problems staying proof of work that if they get some kind of momentum, they won't be able to handle the amount of transactions that are going to be done in their blockchain. So, and we see a conflict of interest in there because they have all these miners also that have invested a lot of money and they don't, maybe if they go to proof of stake, there will be another Ethereum, like Ethereum proof of work and Ethereum proof of stake. So I think that it's a really crucial moment for the future of Ethereum and to see what those guys are going to do and what decisions they are going to make.
Yeah, and it's my understanding that these decisions are all being made with regard to optimizing the platform for future development on top of it, right? So at the end of the day, if the price of ETH goes down to 1 cent and you can get 1 ETH for a penny, that's not going to change the ability of the platform to be developed on top of, for amazing applications to be built on top of it, and for it to do really, really amazing stuff. So in my mind, if I decide to buy ETH, it's not because I look at it as Bitcoin where I can actually hold money and store it and feel like digital gold, whatever. It's more about these tokens are going to be used for gas in these applications that are going to move the world, that you need to keep the wheels turning. So look, is ETH going to be the end of this development, or is something better going to come along? Is EOS going to, show us that you can do something completely different? I don't know, but I'm following the innovative breadcrumbs because this innovation is not going to stop, right? And 20 years from now, we're going to look back on this time and we're going to say, wow, I never saw that coming. The same way we look at our iPhones right now, and 20 years ago, we couldn't have even imagined them. That's the kind of stuff we're dealing with.
I agree that Bitcoin and Ethereum should be apples and oranges. They shouldn't be competitive. Mm-hmm. But Benny does make that interesting point that they did have that little Apple-y aspect to them when they're changing the monetary policy. And when Maximo says, well, they might put a cap on it one day. So they're kind of, I mean, you can have it both ways, I guess. You can have it both ways. But it does seem like I know, and Vitalik has made it very clear that it's not supposed to be a store of value, but then they do these. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. We'll
price matters, man. Price matters. Even if the people tell you that it doesn't matter, it does matter. That's why they're exploring all this stuff.
There you go. That's the conclusion there. The price does matter, even if they say it doesn't matter. It matters. I mean,
it's a tough thing too, because you got companies like Consensus here in Brooklyn that were built with Ethereum money, right? So they were, that's how the company, as far as I know, was built after the rise of Ethereum. So it's, there was money raised through the Ethereum ICO, and after that was used to fund a whole bunch of different projects. So you can't separate the two with Ethereum. Maybe that'll be Ethereum's downfall. Maybe the fact that you can use Ethereum as currency will eventually be the biggest problem it has. Because people will just focus on the price as opposed to the innovation that it brings. So I don't have the answers to those questions, but I do know that the innovation is going to keep going.
And by the way, Benny brought up a point, and I wanted to point this out. He said that Litecoin, in terms of Bitcoin, has not reached its all-time high again. People value your wealth in Bitcoin. If you're playing around this altcoin space, you always got to keep that in the back of your head. What have I just been better off holding this big? Again, if you're treating altcoins just as investments, not as like you're buying Ethereum to use it in a dApp or whatever, which hardly anyone is doing, but if you're just treating them as investments, value your wealth in Bitcoin. And all of the time, you're on the long run, I'm saying it's better just to hold Bitcoin than to play around in all these other gains. Again, if you're going to use the crypto for what it's supposed to be used for, like with Ethereum, then that's a whole nother animal. But I know people who go on the Coinbase and they see I'm going to buy either Ethereum or Bitcoin or Litecoin. They're not good. They're buying it just to diversify. They're not going to use Ethereum or whatever. So, okay, I wanted to because we got to wrap it up pretty soon here. This has been a great show. Pound that freaking like button, people. There's a tweet from Stanton Cruz out there. This time, the little guy can become powerful if only the little guy can learn to hold like a banker. Now, again, I'm not about power, but I understand what he's talking about. Regular people through cryptocurrency, through Bitcoin, can be like the so-called 1% if they could just hold on to their Bitcoin, if they can have long-term thinking like bankers do. I mean, it's not that hard to not be impulsive and not sell your stuff. That's what I'm saying. That's what I think, at least. But what I have encountered here in real life in terms of holding, and I want to bring this up, and this has been brought up previously in the show, so many people who are maybe middle class or upper class or even lower class, they don't want to be bothered with the private key thing. Not at all. They are not jumping into this thing until it's like third-party custodial safe. Now, we already sort of have that with Coinbase. Would you guys agree with me that this is a big, I don't think it should be a stumbling block. I think everyone should embrace personal responsibility, get themselves a Trezor, learn how to do it. But some people are just too freaked out by the concept. If they lose their private key, that's it. There's no one to bail them out. And that I really think we keep on hearing about these large custodial accounts by tremendous financial organizations who are going to make it easy for wealthy people and upper middle class people to buy. I really think it is going to make a big difference. That is when the flood is going to happen, unfortunately. But at the same time, it is fortunate, because if you think that's going to happen, if you can control your own private key now, if you can become comfortable with this very simple concept, you're going to beat all these people to the punch. And just like this tweet said, the little guy can become powerful. So what do you guys think about all this? Is storage too intimidating right now for regular people?
Definitely. And even as Maximo said, when you're in a country like Venezuela, where it would benefit you in an incredible way to properly secure your Bitcoin, and you're still not properly securing your Bitcoin because of either lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, or a lack of necessity or desire, because it is needed. So it's this lack of desire. I think people in Venezuela will be learning and will be doing this right way before people in the US or other Western countries that don't have those kind of problems. When you live in America, you live in England, you live in Australia, you live in countries where you don't have an oppressive government that's coming after your assets, even though an argument can be made that in those countries they do. But regardless, you don't feel terrible about keeping your Bitcoin on Coinbase, right? Because it's like, Coinbase isn't going to steal from me. The government's not going to steal my Coinbase money, even though they will if you lose a lawsuit or whatever. But the necessity isn't there, So for those of us that get it, yeah. But for those of us who are still trying to figure things out, I don't see a world. I honestly don't ever see a world where the majority of people are holding their own private keys. I just don't. Maybe it's an unpopular opinion, but I don't see a world where third parties, where banks don't exist in some form.
I agree.
That might change, but that's where
they're going to be tremendous Bitcoin banks, because people won't take the personal responsibility. And Chris, when I discovered you a long time ago, your first tweet that just woke me up to your greatness was you said that, there's going to be days where Bitcoin goes from, well, not days, but periods where it goes from $80,000 to $40,000 for those people who value their wealth in Bitcoin. And I do believe that something like that will happen one day. We're going to go all the way up, and then we're going to have a tremendous crash in terms of fiat. And I think one of the things that's going to do that is that one of these banks that everyone is relying on, one of these crypto banks is going to get hacked one day. And we're not even at the point where we're at major crypto banks yet. But I'm saying it right here and now that there's going to be some custodial thing that everybody's relying on. It's going to get hacked one day. It's going to cause an incredible panic in terms of fiat. And we're going down that road because people don't want to, they're never going to learn how to control their private keys. Benny, what do you got to say about all this stuff?
So I was going to touch on that. I do think both of you are right. I think the majority of people are just going to say, I don't want to deal with it. I'll let somebody else do it. But I do think that there will be a gradual realization on the part of a lot of people that maybe that's not the best option, because this is now auditable in real time. And so you can see if a bank is holding enough in reserve. If a bank were to get hacked and crypto was stolen, people can see that movement on the blockchain. So then you get into an instance where people start going, oh, I think they got hacked. I should probably take out my coins. And then you get actual bank runs that cannot be stopped. They can just say, no, nobody gets their money. But then that just drives home the point. Hey, not your keys, not your coins. So I think we'll run into more instances of that. And if that just drives a percentage of the population to take more responsibility for their own money because they're worried about those threats more than their lack of knowledge, great. I'm all for people maybe learning the hard way. It's unfortunate, but I think it will happen. And that's where a lot of lessons come from. When something bad happens to you, you're much more likely to perk up and realize, that you should probably get your stuff together than somebody just telling you it. So I do think that we're going to have a lot of centralized banks, more or less, but I think it will be more risky to deal with them than others.
These custodial accounts should be auditable. They should be giving out their public keys, but I think as long as they can get away with it, they won't be. I mean, Coinbase doesn't. Their public keys aren't all known from what I understand. I could be wrong about that, but I mean, again, people lack so much knowledge in this space that they will give their Bitcoin to a Bitcoin bank that does not give out their public key at first, at least. All right, Maximo, what do you have to say about all this storage stuff here?
I agree. I think that most of the people are going to use these companies or these custodians to store their Bitcoin. And I truly don't have a problem with that. The Bitcoin gives us the choice to not to do so. That's what is valuable. So that's where the value comes from. Not because you have to do it, it's because you have the option of not trusting anyone. And yeah, most of the people are going to see because they are scared, because they don't have the technical knowledge, because I don't know. Most of the countries in the world, like Venezuela, they are not too familiar with technology. Actually, if you come here, most of the people struggle using a normal computer. So when you go to them and tell them like, okay, you're going to use this special device to store your cryptocurrency because it's the most secure way to do so, they're going to get scared, and maybe they rather use Coinbase or these other wallets to store their coins because it is easier. And that's their choice, man. I choose to buy a Treasure and I choose to buy a Ledger Nano and test both of them and decide which one is better for me and make my own security decisions. But most of the people won't, and I truly don't see a problem with that. And yeah, there will be consequences. Probably these custodians will get hacked, and people is going to lose money. But man, it has happened with banks from all the history. People get money stolen from the bank all the time, and they're still, when they get paid, they go to the bank and put the money in there. So I think this is no difference. The only difference is that Right now, people like us have the ability to not trust those guys and to store the ourselves.
Yeah, I like what you have to say, Maximo, that Bitcoin gives people the option not to do it that way. If they want to do it the old bank way, have a Bitcoin bank, then let them do it. Also, BTC Benny, you bringing up the future bank run on crypto banks. I don't want to see it happen. I don't want to see people lose it. But then there is a part of me that wants to see how would that go down exactly. That will be there. Something like that. Something like that. Again, I don't wish that upon anyone. I'm out here making sure so people don't, so they understand the simple concept of controlling your own private key, that it's unconfiscatable that way, and that you don't own your Bitcoin unless you control your private key. I'm all about that. But I know that the way the world works, and this is the other thing is going to happen, and it will be interesting to see how, if there is a rumor like that, what kind of crypto bank run there will be. All right, so let's
just give one more comment on that.
Please,
I'm sorry,
Chris. Yeah.
I just want to throw one other alternate take out there. You know, when we talk about this stuff, I think a lot of times we fall into the trap of always thinking from our point of view, right? And the point of view of like privileged people that understand technology and can afford computers, and that don't live under oppressive regimes, except for you, Maximo, but sorry about that. So I think it's important to think about the other night. We are the 1%. I hate to say it. We're the 1% of crypto. So to me, it's not okay if the other 99% doesn't know how to control their keys and has their money sitting in a bank where it can be seized by a government, where it can be shut down, where it can be surveilled, because it's the same exact situation we're in right now. So if we really want to see crypto change the world and give people more freedom with their money and give them more freedom to conduct commerce and censorship free and unconfiscatable and all these things, we have to get to a point where people take responsibility for their own money. The fact that we can't visualize it right now is a really big problem, I think. And it's a problem that I hope we can solve through continued innovation.
And education. I mean, education is going to be huge with all this. Well, this third-party custodial stuff is big time. It's going to be talked about more and more, including next week. And if you're paying attention, Caitlin Long will be on the show next week. I'm only saying it once. All right, Benny, what do you? Anything else you had to add to all that stuff?
Yeah, I as far as the storage stuff, again, the number one quote that I see thrown around is not your keys, not your coin. So you got to make sure that, if you don't want to have to trust somebody else with your money, then you've got to learn how to hold your own private keys securely, properly. And you got to be careful with stuff like that. So I just say to everybody that's even just dabbling into crypto, learn the difference between different types of wallets. What is the difference between a mobile or desktop wallet versus a hardware wallet versus a custodial service? And what are the trade-offs with each? If you can wrap your head around that, then you're already ahead of the pack and you're off to a good start.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good. And this is the man of education. Check out his BTC sessions. All right. Conclusion. I'll start with Benny here. Conclusionary remarks. Tell people where they can find you. Anything you wanted to bring up that you didn't have time to bring up today.
Yeah. You can find me on Twitter at BTC Benny. I'm on YouTube here, so you can just search BTC Sessions. I do weekly videos, a lot of interviews and tutorials, how-tos, all that kind of stuff. And the one thing that I'm sad we didn't get to, but I found very interesting this week was Shapeshift deciding to implement KYC, know your customer, and they've been touted as the exchange without accounts. I guess they're pivoting. I do want to point to that because I've been talking about it on Twitter, but I do want to say that I don't think that was an active choice of Eric Voorhees. I think there's more going on behind the scenes because he is like the libertarian.
Yeah.
Benny,
he said in one of the tweets there was pressure put on. I mean, he didn't directly say it, but the government is putting pressure on him.
What I was sad to see it happen, and what I do wish he would have done, and what I would have liked to seen, and this is expecting a lot, but when New York implemented BitLicense, he basically, you know, flipped the bird to the entire state and left. But in this case, it just kind of seems like it was a choice of either have the business or don't. So it's unfortunate. I understand that he has employees and he has to, you know, people are relying on him now, but it would have been pretty epic for him to just say, no, Shapeshift is, I'm just going to not do it anymore, and to just exit in some sort of epic fashion. But it's unfortunate, and you know what, this gives rise to things like decentralized exchanges, because as soon as somebody puts pressure on one point, that's where all the attention goes, and guess what people are going to be working on now.
Yeah, I agree. And the cross atomic swaps, all that good stuff. He
would like to add anything, something about the Shapeshift thing.
What are you going to say? Sorry, Max, what did you say?
I would like to add something.
Oh, yeah, please.
Yeah, this is a phrase that came out in a Nike commercial. Colin Kaepernick did it. And it says, believe in something even if it means sacrificing everything. So I truly believe that it's really, I'm going to say bad, from Eric Borges, that he always told the people that he's such a libertarian, that he believed in that he signed the 2x agreement because he believed in Bitcoin being what he thought 2x was going to be. And now, and he said that he hates banks and he hates KYC and AML and all that kind of stuff. And now you are going against all of that by implementing KYC and creating accounts in your exchange, which is supposed to be like you said, Benny, the exchange with no accounts. So it's really funny to see these guys and the big blockers. When they get some kind of pressure, they have to eat their words. Well, it's really funny.
It's centralization. I mean, this is what we talked about beforehand. It's centralization versus decentralized. If you're going to start an organization like that, it's centralized. You're going to have a pressure point. There's going to be a point where you're going to give in. Now, why he's issuing a token? I heard they're going to have a token also. That's a whole.
Yeah, they're doing an ICO.
Yeah, that's a little additional. But I'm not. I'm not going to get. I never liked that he was into the. You called him a big blocker. Yeah, I don't forget about that. He was into the 2x thing and everything. And we're not going to get into all that right now. But all right, Chris. Since we did bring up that additional topic, did you have any shapeshifts?
I think it's really, really, really unfair to criticize his decision without having all the facts about what led to it, B, what his life situation is. What are his options if a U.S. government is coming down on him? His options are, okay, we can shut it down. We can move it out of the country, uproot his whole family and leave. To expect somebody to do these things is not fair, without knowing all the facts. So I think, I'm sure the guy made the right decision for the right time, and people are angry just because people are always looking for things to be angry about. At the end of the day, something else is going to come along, and it's going to be decentralized, and it's going to, be anonymous, and it's going to be distributed, and it's going to let us do the same thing that we could do with Shapeshift. So this might be something that needed to happen for us to get to that point, right?
People shouldn't be angry at him. I totally agree. Why he did the token thing, that's an additional thing, but I don't even know that much about that aspect of it. But keep going, yeah.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't know what the token does or why it's there, but. Look, at the end of the day, either use it or don't use it. It's like any other business, right? So let's just move on. If we're all going to leave. Somebody else is going to come up with the next big thing.
Yeah. Clearly, people are disappointed. They want anonymous. They want to be anonymous. Let's come up with more anonymous solutions, people, for all sorts of things out there. And actually, Bitcoin Magazine, Aaron Van Weerdum had some article about things getting more private in the Bitcoin world, in the crypto world. Check that article out, or check out Aaron Van Weerdum. He's been on the show before. All right, Matt, we'll get to Chris. You'll be the last one, but Max, we'll get to you now. What are your conclusionary remarks? What do you have to say about Venezuela that maybe you forgot? Anything you want to add?
Well, thank you for having me. I had a blast, guys, really. And I don't know, like about crypto, like we always says, do your own research. Don't trust. This space was built for you to don't trust anyone. So keep that in mind. And about Venezuela, we're working on trying to build a non-profit organization, but without consequences on our personal life. So we're working on it, and we're going to deliver something for all the crypto community that it is and that is interested in Venezuela and want to help. But you gotta give us times, guys, because entrepreneurship in here is not easy. So we will update through this channel, that's for sure.
All right. Well, keep me updated, and I will keep everyone updated. Pound that like button if you guys support Maximo down there, and you give him all the credit in the world for coming on this show, man, and giving us a in-person type of thing. Now, speaking of entrepreneurship, Chris, you're gonna wrap it up. You're a big entrepreneur. You got your crypto consultation going on. Give out that website. It is linked to below. All these guys are linked to below. But tell us anything that was left out. Give your information. Anything you want to add.
Cool. Well, I saw in the chat I was getting some hate for being favorable to Ethereum, which is interesting. And people said I shilled it, which if you were actually listening to what I said, it wasn't much of shilling it as an investment. But I do think that that's symptomatic of a bigger problem that we have right now, especially in the bear market. It's become more transparent, and that's people treating cryptocurrencies like they're football teams or religions or nation states. Look, guys, these are technologies. These are technologies. It's code on a screen. Okay. When you don't understand that, your first inclination is to think of it like a football team. This is my team. I'm going to stick with it. Maybe I have 2 or 3, but whatever. This is my number one. That's the most dangerous thing. That is so. I truly believe that kind of attitude has set crypto back a year, as far as development because of that nonsense and baloney. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that I'm a big believer in keeping an open mind with technology, being smart. If you're going to buy something, know what it is before you buy it. Don't just buy a token because it's there. And my website is chriscrypto.net, and I work with entrepreneurs that want to dive into the space but don't really know how and need some education and want to build a decentralized solution for their business.
Awesome way to wrap it up there, Chris. Thank you, Chris, Maximo, and Benny for being on this week in Bitcoin show. I do this show every Friday. Next week, I do know it will be on at 11:45 a.m. Eastern time. Andy Hoffman, Caitlin Long, and Farzam from South Africa will be on. It is going to be a rocking show. And of course, I do a new show here every single day. You can see it. Go to disruptmeister.com if you want to see all my old shows. Tomorrow, Saturday, is the Beyond Bitcoin show. We talk about stuff way beyond Bitcoin, real life stuff, issues, whatever. But yeah, everybody, pound the freaking like button. It's great to be back in Baltimore. I will be here for the next 13 days or 12 days, whatever it is. And everyone have a great time. I'm Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video. Check out the links below to read everything that we talked about and see all these guys and meet them and follow them on Twitter and all that good stuff. Bye-bye, everyone. See you later. Peace.